Hey, good evening. I'm really happy to have you here. My name is Daniel, I was a professional opera singer and beatboxer, and tonight we're gonna be listening to Nemo, a Nightwish cover performed by Dan Vasc. So, this one was recommended to me from Judith W., who actually donated to the channel, and that means so much to me, especially since I haven't launched my Patreon yet or anything like that. So just to know that people are willing to spend their hard-earned resources on me and this content and the channel, it just really means a lot to me. So Judith, thank you so much for that, and I wanted to make sure that I got to this as quick as I could. So with that said, I'm really excited to jump into this. I think Dan is a really great vocalist and performer, and I'm just really excited, and I hope you are as well. So without any further delay, let's just jump into it.
This is me for forever, one of the lost ones.
Yeah!
One without a name, without an honest heart as compass.
Woo!
This is me for forever, one without a name. This line's a last endeavor to find the missing lifeline. All I wish for something rain. All I wish is to dream again. My loving heart lost in the dark. For hope I give my everything. My hour wither between the pages 2 and 3. The once and forever blue dawn with my sin. Walk the dark path, sleep with angels, call the past for help. Touch me with your love and reveal to me my true name. Oh, how I wish for something rain. All I wish is to dream again. My loving heart lost in the dark. For hope I give my everything. Oh, how I wish for something rain. All I wish is to dream again.
Yeah!
Once and for all, and all for once. Nemo, my name forevermore.
Oh, yeah!
Nemo sailing home.
Yeah.
Nemo letting go.
Ugh! Holy smokes, dude. That was... First off, the thing that I loved the most about this piece was the beautiful blend of raw power and intensity mixed with this beautiful, seemingly benign operatic tone, classical style with an underlying strength to it. A silent intensity, if you will. And just the fact that both of them blended so well together that throughout the entirety of the piece, I felt that raw aggression, just full force, but it was mixed so well with that classical style that it just made it so palatable for me. And it let me fully enjoy the rawness without being overwhelmed by it. Oh my gosh, that was just... oh, that was fantastic, dude. So good. It doesn't mean to say that I don't have my perspectives and criticisms on it, but yeah, I really loved that. Let's jump into the analysis so I can pick it apart a little bit more. Right from the beginning, you just get this really quick synthesized kind of effect, and this forte piano line that's up in the higher register of the piano, just doing its main melodic line, and then you get the really intense metal feel. So just kind of feeling all of that powerful music just full force in the beginning, having Dan come in here as gently as he does in this well supported, but more mezzo piano or medium soft volume dynamic, while not really having any rawness or coarseness in his approach here. His vocal style feels very traditional, very classical, and I love that contrast. Just right from the beginning, you get that great blend of powerful intensity from the music with this beautiful contrast in the classical style, and I love that. And it just doesn't lose that great consistency of enmeshing themselves together throughout the entirety of the piece, which is just amazing.
For forever, one of the lost one.
I love the fact that he held on to the N and carried it through into the next word.
For forever, one of the lost ones. The one without a name, without an honest heart as compass.
First off, it might sound simple to have your vibrato harmonize with itself when you are multi-tracking and harmonizing your own voice, but it's actually not as simple as people make it out to be, just in the idea of, well, it's your voice, you should be able to not only harmonize with it, but have your vibrato sync up to it since it's the same vibrato. Where there's some truth to that, but if any of you have actually attempted multi-tracking before, it's not as easy to line up your vibrato as people make it out to be. And for the fact that he is able to manipulate his voice to the right dynamic and to have the fluctuation of a pitch or his vibrato so synced up with itself, that's really amazing, honestly. And his harmonies are so clean too, very tight, right dead center in the middle of the pitch, and it's just so good, dude.
Without an honest heart as compass, this is me for forever, one without a name.
His phrasing here is so wonderful. It's just so fluid, and it just flows from cadence to cadence.
For forever, one without a name. This line's a last endeavor to find the missing lifeline. Oh, how I wish for something rain.
So something I really dig about this is it doesn't feel like a full scream. It feels like a very powerful belt, where a scream would have more of that coarse texture to it, where this definitely feels so much more smooth. And not to say that his screams aren't controlled, but this is definitely intended to hit the note in comparison to hit an emotional chord and connect with his audience by emotionally pulling on their heartstrings. So this definitely feels more like a direct approach into music instead of a direct approach to his audience's heartstrings, if that makes sense. So just the fact that he's giving us more of a taste of what's to come in terms of the screaming later on down the line, because it doesn't feel like a traditional belt. It does feel like it has that metal scream energy to it, but it still feels very musical. And not only that, but after he finishes the high note and comes back, he tapers it a little bit. And he comes into this gentle vibrato, even though it's still very powerful and well supported. This is just another example of what I mean by he just does this incredible job blending this musical theater classical style of singing with this more intense, gritty metal style of music, and it's so good. I mean, I also know that Nightwish does an exceptional job of this as well, knowing that their lead vocalists typically have classical backgrounds, but specifically with Dan as well, it's just incredible. After listening to his Nessun Dorma and plenty of his other pieces, just to know that he's capable of blending these two styles exceptionally well, I think him covering Nightwish is a really good choice on his part, for sure.
All I wish is to dream again. My loving heart, lost in the dark. For hope I give my everything.
And you just see how the music just completely takes over his entire presence. He feels music very similarly to the way I do, and judging from the comments that I've been getting, very similarly to the way that many of you feel music as well, where it's just this incredible, palpable energy that just emits from all people who really love music. Even if you don't necessarily have that musical knowledge and background, just being able to experience music or going to a museum and seeing a piece of art that really moves you, or maybe going to an auto show and seeing a particular body that really connects with you, or whatever the case is that you really connect with the thing that you're engaging with, you can just deeply appreciate and let it move you. And you don't need to understand necessarily why it moves you, but just experience the feeling of being moved. I think that's a really beautiful opportunity to connect with each other as human beings. And personally, I find it more fulfilling when you do understand what it is that you're experiencing, because it gives you even more of a richness of personal understanding of, oh, that explains why I really love this or really feel these emotions when I listen to this or experience this art. But ultimately, the most important thing is how you connect with the thing that moves you, not necessarily your technical, in-depth knowledge or understanding of it, even though I do think that it helps aggrandize one's appreciation for it.
In the dark, for hope I give my everything. My flower withered.
What a wonderful concentration of sound. Just to where we had this really big explosion of sound and just concentrating it into this very delicate, light atmosphere again. And it doesn't feel like it was forced back in. It feels like it intrinsically came back in. And now it feels comfortably intimate. Not, I'm concentrating all of this energy into the densest thing in the world. It still feels pretty relaxed in this section, even though we just came off of this very hype, very intense energy. And it's not even the most intense that we're going to get in this piece. I just love the way that nothing feels very constrictive. Nothing feels like we're forcing everything into this small bubble. It flows so freely, regardless of the softness or the loudness or the manipulation of textures throughout the entirety of the piece. Everything just feels so free, and I love that feeling. And I'm sure this was absolutely intentional from probably both Nightwish, but in this particular video, Dan especially.
Between the pages 2 and 3, the once and forever blue, gone with my sins. Whoa!
adding just a little bit of that grit to show this transitionary period. Love that.
Touch me, angels call the past for help.
Yeah.
Touch me with your love and
Oh, just that line. Ba-da-da. Yeah, just the way that he approached that, it was just very curved. It didn't feel choppy. It wasn't bum bum bum. Ba-da-da. And with how smooth the transitions have been in this piece, even these passing notes could heavily affect the sensation that an audience member might feel in the piece. Even if they might not understand it entirely, you can still feel that level of disconnect if he were to approach it in a way that separated those notes in that line. But because it was curved and because he connected that entire cadence, you just still feel this ever-flowing transitionary period. And it's so smooth. And he doesn't lose the smoothness at any point throughout the entirety of the piece. And that's why I think he executes this piece so well, because at no point have I ever felt disconnected at all. Everything felt exactly like it was supposed to. Everything felt connected and nothing felt out of the blue. It's just all together. Ah, yeah, dude.
touch me with your love and reveal to me my true name. Oh, how I wish for something rain. All I wish is to dream again. My loving heart lost in the dark. For hope I'll give my everything. Oh, how I wish for something rain. All I wish is to dream again. Once and for all, and all for once. Nemo, my name forevermore.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. First off, in this entire section, notice at the very ends of cadences, he's always decrescendoing or decreasing the volume and tapering just a little bit. Not to the point where it's very slow and tapers into nothing, but it just gently fades out just a little bit. But not enough to where he can't immediately pick up that energy again and continue the next musical cadence. It's very fluid and allows this kind of growth decrescendo kind of feeling, which is really exceptional in this, especially in this transitionary period. So just the fact that he rides that kind of energy, especially on this final note of this section where we have this loud energy and we feel the same decrescendo, only now we're on a stable dynamic, and since this is a much longer note, he's going to sustain this note on a straight tone and then spin it with his vibrato at the very end of it and add a little bit more breath to it, add a little bit more, not just support, but dynamic contrast to really start putting the pedal to the metal, hit that gas pedal to launch into the next section of the piece. And that is really exceptional musicianship. And then just falling off, hitting with that guitar again. Ah, yeah, dude. Ah. Yeah, and because he ends it there, just because he doesn't immediately come back in with his voice and explodes again, you can still feel the level of energy just through the instruments in and of themselves, and just get that feeling like, even though we're not looking at him or are able to see him and what he's specifically doing here, which, to be honest, I wish we did, even though I'm sure it would have probably been awkward for him for this longer period of this musical interlude, for him not to be doing anything, but he is still performing, he is still on stage, and he doesn't have a live band that we can also look at. So I get it, but I'd much rather look at him than this static image. But that being said, after that taper and fade out, you just feel the kinetic energy of the piece just constantly moving. And you know that his voice is still a part of this musical interlude, this energy that's still bubbling under the surface. And that's what I more or less mean by ready to come back in and explode with this energy. And It's so good. You still feel his presence even in this image. Amazing. Okay, so this is something that I want to comment on. When he's doing his vibrato here, you can see that there's not a lot of tension in his jaw, that it's not shaking at all, because his diaphragm and his breath and his support is what's creating the vibrato. It's not his jaw. Where I've noticed later in the piece when he is committing to a very similar vibrato, that his jaw is shaking, which to me reflects a bit of jaw tension and maybe even a little bit of tongue tension. And I'll point it out when we get to it. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's the worst thing in the world, but I think that if you wanted to create an even more powerful sound and an even more broad and expansive sound that more so enveloped his audience, not to say again that he doesn't already do that, but to just do it even more so, just doing it how he's doing it here, where even though it's not as powerful as the end in terms of its dynamic or volume, just look at his face. You see that intensity, you feel the intensity. And it's not even just visually, but you hear it in his voice as well. Like, let's listen to this section again. And just the way that he falls off these notes. Oh my gosh, dude. That fall off just adds a little bit of that feeling of anguish. He's so good at connecting directly with one's emotional heartstrings, and every stylistic choice he commits to, you feel it in your being. And I think that's why his fandom, or the Vasc Nation, I've been told, truly admires and appreciates his music, where he just does such a good job of connecting with his audience. It's really very impressive. He's an excellent musician, honestly. That yell was incredible. It didn't feel gritty. It was so well supported. It was very big, very open, intense, very broad sounding. It didn't feel very piercing. It was just being completely enveloped in that sound, and that's so wonderful. That being said, you can tell that he does have a little bit of jaw tension, so one might feel a little constricted in that section before getting into the bigger sound. But I think that's more of a subconscious thing from Dan here. And what I mean by that is many people that engage with live performers probably have not been on a stage to perform themselves. They just appreciate others doing it because they're probably more skilled in performing music than they are. So with that being said, when you're on stage performing, you are not paying attention to every little thing that's happening with your body, with your voice, because your brain, your conscious brain, is focusing on lyrics, on prepping for more intense sounds that you know are more difficult for you to execute well, on making sure you're in the tempo and making sure that your voice is matching with the rest of your band, or in this case, the track behind him. There's so many different elements that you need to consciously be aware of, that the only way that you know you're going to be able to execute certain elements of a show is by just rehearsing. And it honestly just comes down to practice and the amount of time you spend with a piece, because there's so many little elements of a piece that you're not thinking of, especially when you're on stage in front of an audience, that you know you have to rely on yourself in order to pull these things off. And you can't exert conscious mental space towards these elements because your brain is thinking of the lyrics, the tempo, the everything else. And part of this would be jaw tension. Part of this would be tongue tension, what you're doing with your body. And all of these are differences that can actually really make or break the performance. And many people might be wondering, well, if it's so important, why wouldn't you focus your conscious attention to it? And the reason is because if you're doing a live performance for people that especially are not musicians, the only things that they're going to be paying attention to are how they're feeling, the lyrics of the piece, and if they're having a good time at the show. They're not really analyzing or scrutinizing the general performance. They're just absorbing the feelings that they're getting from the performer. And it's the performer's responsibility to ensure that every element of the performance is giving his audience exactly what it is he wants them to feel. And in order to do that, I can tell here that he's prepping himself for this intense belt scream that he's about to commit to. And you feel that build up physically in his body. And it feels, at least from this particular video, subconscious, where you feel a little bit of this tension building up in his jaw, in his tongue, in his body before executing that powerful note. Because that powerful note is critically important to execute well, and he makes sure that he does it well, and it sounds amazing, don't get me wrong. But while his brain is focusing on the lyrics and executing this particular section before the yell within this particular atmosphere, this lighter atmosphere, his brain isn't actually focusing on the level of tension in his body because it's prepping for this really great execution of this higher, more intense note. And to the untrained ear, it's not going to sound like anything critical. And for me personally, to the trained ear, it isn't the most critical aspect of it, but it is something that I am able to hear. And I do feel a certain level of discomfort and tension in my body as I hear his tension constricting him. And that's always a very challenging thing when you as an artist are very skilled in connecting with people emotionally, is the moment you connect with them and guide them through your world, all of a sudden, if that person that you've connected with is trained in music, specifically voice, and you start feeling this tension in your body, even though you're not consciously aware of it, your audience is going to feel that. Even to the untrained, if you really connect with them emotionally and you can visually see on their body that they're constricting just ever so slightly, then the person might feel that constriction. Maybe not be aware of it themselves, but you feel it on some underlying level. And it's just important to keep that in mind as you're rehearsing. And that's why it's so important to have a coach or to have some kind of mentor that's observing you and able to say, okay, execute this line. Okay, you executed it. How did that feel in your body? Okay, this is what I observed from you, and this is what I think we need to work on more of so you can maintain this particular atmosphere and not lead your audience into feeling this certain way before executing this particular note. And you work on that and you release the tension bit by bit through practice, through rehearsal, and then when you actually perform it, you're not thinking about it at all still, but you rely on yourself knowing that through your practice that this has become second nature and you're able to execute something exceptionally well. Oh, but that's just such an amazing note. Ah, yeah, dude, so good. It's amazing. It really is. Just going into this controlled, not hermit, but inward feeling, especially after that scream, and then letting it explode again and feeling that with him. Oh, I love that. He does such a good job of provoking very specific emotions from each and every one of us. And he's so good. He's so good. Just, his eyes are so expressive. This entire section here felt so free, so relaxed, and I loved every single second of it. It was so magical.
Wish to dream again. Once and for all, and all the ones need more money forevermore.
Ah! Yeah, right here is where he starts shaking his jaw a little bit for vibrato, and I think this is just more him being so wrapped in his own music, which I really love to see from a musician's standpoint. If you're really feeling your music, then I can really feel your music with you, and I really love that. But just from a purely technical standpoint, it's always better to not have that tension in your jaw and to allow your vibrato to come naturally through your breath and your support. But that being said, I love the fact that I can even visually see his connection through his music through a certain level of tension in his body. Like, I was commenting on this in one of my Dimash videos, and I even made a couple of comments on this in the comment section, where I think it's actually perfectly fine to sacrifice elements of technique in order to create a more visually captivating performance. When you're on stage, you are a performer. You're not just a musician. If you go see a live play production, let's say, the orchestra is going to sound absolutely amazing because they're not on stage performing. They are focusing solely on the music in and of itself. And they have the sheet music in front of them even, so they don't even have to memorize it. They can look at all of their notes, even though it's obviously better to memorize it. You still have all of your notes, all of your cues, and the way that you're bowing something or playing something or whatever the case is. Everything is very music focused in the orchestra, but on stage, it's a combination of both the music and the performance because the audience is looking at the performers. So in this particular instance for Dan here, just feeling everything and connecting with him through his music, through his performance, it's just exceptional. I think the elements of technique that he does end up sacrificing for the sake of the performance, for the emotional connection I have with him thanks to this level of commitment he has to this performance and the way that he's engaging with his music, I think is not only a great choice, but it's something that just personally I deeply respect and love about his performance style. Absolutely. Yeah, in that ending section there, I wish we had more of Dan just standing there with his extremely dominating presence. Because I've seen him in other videos during musical interludes where we're just looking at him and he's not singing, but he's still on stage performing, still in that intensity. And I would have loved to still just watched him, because he's not only a very attractive man, but just his energy in the piece is just so palpable. And his presence is so strong and comforting. It's exactly what you want from this kind of musician. And just the way he expresses himself through that music, through his stance, it's really amazing. You get an idea of who he is as a person through his music, through the way that he presents himself. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing, being able to express solely who you are as a person through music. I oftentimes see covers of songs where a vocalist is singing a song exactly the same way as another artist did it. And I'm not getting that person's understanding of music through that. I'm not getting that person's personality through that. I can't connect with them as an artist because they're mimicking, and you can tell that they're mimicking. there's no real emotional depth or connection. And I'm not saying that that's anybody's particular fault, but it is a very vulnerable experience to showcase who you are as a person and how you deeply connect with music, through your performance. Performing is a very terrifying endeavor because what you're doing is essentially spending arduous hours practicing, conceptualizing, interpreting, memorizing, transposing, and a myriad of other elements, all within practice, getting professional advice and tips and structuring yourself in such a way that you take all of this knowledge, wisdom, and information and compact it into your memory and your heart. And the moment that you're on stage, you take everything that you've accumulated and present it to the audience. And just the amount of time you've spent and everything that you've cultivated is now this very cherished and very beautiful element of who you are as a person. And you're able to conceptualize it however you want, but ultimately you are taking that thing that would be reflective of whatever it is in the hands and presenting it to the audience. And it's very terrifying to do that because the audience can reject you. The audience can reject everything you've worked on just because they don't like it, because they don't understand it. But whatever the case is, you have to be okay with whatever the audience says because you're performing it to them. Yes, you have your own internalized feeling as to what music is, but you wouldn't be performing for other people if all you cared about was what music means to you. The reason you're performing it is because you genuinely have a passion for sharing what music means to you. You have a genuine passion towards sharing music in a way that is richly and authentically your own, and not just, oh, well, I'm just doing covers because it's easy to do that and it makes money. Yes, there are people like that, but typically audiences don't feel a deep emotional connection with those types of performers. People that genuinely make music their own and structure music in a way that is so richly and authentically themselves in the way that, say, Dan does it here, that's when you really know that you found a really remarkable artist who has internalized music in such a way that is so richly their own. And I just respect that quality in a musician so freaking much. It's a remarkable element of exceptional musicians to be able to take a cover of something and make it your own. Or if it's an original piece, making that original piece even more your own, not just because of the fact that you wrote it, but in how you perform it. And just from everything that I've heard from Dan so far, even though what he performs is primarily covers of things, he just makes it his own. And you can feel that. You don't need to have such in-depth musical knowledge to be able to experience that emotional connection to Dan. And it's just such an amazing experience to be able to experience a little bit of his personality mixed with his performance, his music. And it might not be his song, but this performance was his own, and I just respect that so much. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. If y'all liked it, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And if you didn't like it, please leave a dislike and let me know why in the comments below. I do read all of the comments, even if I may not heart or reply to all of them, so please just know your comments do not go unnoticed, and I do take them into further consideration as I make future videos. Thank you so much again for Judith W. for recommending this video to me. This was amazing. Obviously through my reaction. I'm still working on my Patreon. As you guys might have been able to see, I'm still dealing with copyright issues and just general computer issues, and I'm still working on navigating through this, so I appreciate your patience. My live streams are Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so if you guys would like to stop by and say hey or ask any questions about myself or the channel, I'd be more than happy to be there for you guys. I want to take this moment to deeply appreciate all of you for being here watching these videos, and truly, thank you so much for being here. I deeply appreciate it. And I can't wait to see all of you in the next video. Have a great rest of your evening, everyone.